What happens when people come too close to one of the ocean's deadliest hunters? The sea is beautiful, but it hides dangers beneath the waves. Some swimmers, divers, and adventurers have met terrifying fates when sharks attack without warning. These powerful predators strike fast, leaving little chance to escape. Whether through accidents, bad luck, or risky choices, the results are often tragic. These real-life stories remind us why the ocean must be respected. On October 4, 2024, Tyler Matthews was on the Caribbean Princess cruise ship sailing from Miami to the Bahamas. The night was warm, and the ship moved smoothly through the calm Atlantic waters. Tyler, a 29-year-old traveler, was enjoying the trip with a group of friends. He had always loved the ocean, often choosing vacations that involved beaches and water activities. He worked in marketing, spending most of his days in an office, so he looked forward to trips like this. Tyler had a lively personality. He was known for making people laugh and being the life of the party. Since the start of the cruise, he had been celebrating non-stop. The ship was filled with music, lights, and entertainment. That evening, Tyler and his friends spent hours in the bar, drinking and having fun. The atmosphere was festive, and passengers danced and enjoyed the night. As the night went on, Tyler continued drinking. He moved from one lounge to another, laughing and enjoying himself. The alcohol blurred his thoughts, making his movements unsteady. His friends were also caught up in the excitement, unaware of how much he had been drinking. At some point, Tyler wandered away from the crowded areas, heading toward the ship's deck. The deck was quiet compared to the lively bars inside. The sound of the waves filled the air, and the lights of the ship reflected on the dark water. Tyler leaned against the railing, looking out at the endless ocean. The ship's movement, combined with his intoxicated state, made it hard for him to keep his balance. He swayed, gripping the railing loosely. In an instant, he lost his footing. He stumbled forward, reaching out, but there was nothing to hold onto. His body tipped over the edge, falling into the cold, dark water below. The ocean swallowed him, and the sound of the party faded as he struggled in the waves. The ship continued moving, unaware of what had happened. The water was freezing, and Tyler's heavy limbs made it difficult to swim. He tried to shout, but his voice was weak against the vast sea. He was alone in the darkness, far from help. Panic set in as he kicked and splashed, trying to stay afloat. Unbeknownst to him, his movements had drawn attention beneath the surface. A large shadow moved silently in the water. The ocean was its home, and it had sensed the sudden disturbance. Within moments, a 14-foot great white shark emerged from the depths. The predator was powerful and swift, moving with deadly precision. Before Tyler could react, the shark struck. It lunged forward, its massive jaws clamping down, pulling him under. The struggle was brief. The ocean, which had once seemed peaceful, had become a place of terror. The ship sailed on, the passengers still unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded in the dark waters behind them. The water became still again after the attack. Only a few ripples remained on the surface, quickly fading into the vast ocean. The ship continued moving, unaware of the horror that had unfolded in the dark waters. The party on board carried on, music and laughter filling the night air. No one had seen Tyler fall. No one had heard his final struggle. The only evidence of his disappearance was the empty deck where he had last stood. Hours passed before anyone noticed he was missing. His friends, assuming he had gone to his cabin, did not think much of his absence. It was not until early morning when they knocked on his door and received no answer that worry set in. They searched the ship, asking crew members if they had seen him. No one had. Panic spread among them as they realized he was nowhere to be found. A full-scale search began. The crew reviewed security footage, checking the last moments he had been seen. The footage showed Tyler stumbling toward the deck alone. The grainy images captured the moment he lost his balance and disappeared over the edge. There was no sign of him resurfacing. The realization was devastating. The ship had traveled miles since that moment. There was little hope of finding him alive. Authorities were alerted and rescue efforts were launched. Helicopters and search boats scanned the waters looking for any sign of him. The ocean, endless and unforgiving, gave no clues. Hours passed, and the chances of survival became slim. The waters were deep and the currents were strong. If the fall had not taken his life, the predators beneath the surface would likely finish what the sea had started. As the investigation continued, experts reviewed the area where the incident had taken place. The Atlantic waters in that region were known for shark activity. Sightings of large great whites were common. The likelihood of survival after falling into such waters was low. Witnesses from other ships reported shark sightings in the same area around the time of the accident. It became clear that even if Tyler had survived the fall, he had faced something far worse in the water. News of the tragedy spread quickly. Reports described the horrifying details of how he had vanished into the sea. The public reacted with shock and disbelief. Many questioned how such an accident could happen on a luxury cruise. Discussions about safety measures on ships grew louder. People demanded better railings, stricter alcohol policies, and advanced detection systems to prevent such incidents. Tyler's family, heartbroken, struggled to accept the loss. Without a body to recover, closure seemed impossible. The sea had taken him, leaving only memories behind. His loved ones mourned, remembering the joyful person he had been. They were given access to the footage of his fall, a painful but final piece of the puzzle. The cruise line faced criticism but maintained that all safety protocols had been followed. The ocean, however, was unpredictable. The ship continued its journey, carrying passengers who would never know the full horror of what had happened in the dark waters that night. On January 15, 2025, the cold waters off the coast of Maine became the site of a devastating event. Lieutenant Ethan Walker, a 28-year-old United States Navy officer, had spent years preparing for dangerous missions. He was strong, focused, and dedicated to his duty. Growing up in Virginia, he had always dreamed of serving in the military. His hard work and determination led him to the Navy, where he became a respected officer. He specialized in reconnaissance and had undergone intense training to handle high-risk situations. That morning, the sea was rough and the wind was strong. Ethan and his team were part of an advanced training exercise. The mission was to test their ability to move undetected in open waters. They were swimming from a small vessel toward an isolated island, staying low and silent to avoid detection. The area had been used for training before, and no one expected any danger from the water. The team moved in formation, each member focused on reaching the shore. Unknown to them, a massive 19-foot great white shark was lurking nearby. The movement in the water had caught its attention. It circled beneath the surface, drawn closer by the splashing. Ethan, positioned at the rear, was the first to sense something was wrong. A dark shape moved beneath him. His instincts told him to stay calm, but before he could react, the predator struck. With terrifying speed, the shark lunged at him, its powerful jaws clamping down on his torso. Pain shot through his body as the sharp teeth tore through flesh. Blood spread quickly in the water, turning it red. The force of the attack sent shockwaves through the team. They turned in horror, watching as Ethan struggled against the enormous predator. The shark thrashed violently, pulling him under before rising again with its grip still tight on his body. The team reacted instantly. They moved toward Ethan, trying to pull him away. One of them struck at the shark, but it refused to release him. The water churned as the struggle continued. Despite the chaos, the predator remained locked on its target. The team's shouts were drowned by the sounds of the waves and the frantic splashing. Ethan fought with every ounce of strength he had. His training had prepared him for many dangers, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He tried to break free, but the loss of blood was weakening him. His body grew heavy, his vision blurred, and the cold water surrounded him. Realizing the severity of the situation, the team managed to pull Ethan away as the shark finally released its grip. They held onto him tightly, moving as fast as possible toward the rescue boat. The once practiced strokes of their training now became a desperate attempt to save their friend. The boat was within sight, but the damage had already been done. Ethan's body grew limp in their arms. The freezing water mixed with the warmth of his blood. His teammates pushed forward, refusing to give up, unaware that the worst had already happened. The team reached the rescue boat and carefully lifted Ethan's body out of the water. His uniform was soaked and his skin was pale. His teammates tried to stop the bleeding, but there was too much blood loss. The medic on board quickly assessed him, but there was nothing more they could do. Despite their desperate efforts, Ethan had already lost too much blood and his body had gone still. The team surrounded him, their faces filled with shock and grief. The water that dripped from their uniforms was mixed with the deep red color of his blood. Silence filled the boat as the realization sank in. He was gone. The radio crackled as the captain reported the incident. The boat changed course, heading straight for the nearest naval base. The waves rocked the vessel, but no one spoke. Some of the men stared at the horizon while others looked down, unable to process what had happened. The cold air felt heavier than before, as if the weight of the tragedy had spread through the entire crew. Back at the base, officers and medical staff were waiting. The flag was lowered as a sign of respect. Ethan's body was carefully transported from the boat, covered with the Navy flag. His fellow officers stood at attention, their eyes fixed forward. No one moved until the last step of the process was complete. News of the attack spread quickly. The Navy immediately launched an investigation to understand how such a tragedy could happen in waters that were previously considered safe. Experts reviewed the training area and analyzed the factors that could have led to the presence of the predator. They studied patterns of shark movement in the region, realizing that increased fish activity may have attracted the large predator closer to shore. Ethan's family was notified. His parents, who had always been proud of his service, were devastated. They had always known the risks that came with his job, but they never expected this. His younger sister, who had looked up to him all her life, struggled to accept the loss. Letters and messages of support poured in from fellow officers and people across the country. The Navy made immediate changes to its training protocols. New technology was introduced to detect large marine animals near training zones. Additional safety measures were put in place to reduce future risks. The loss of a skilled officer like Ethan could not be ignored. His story became a reminder of the dangers that even the most trained individuals could face in the open sea. A memorial service was held in his honor. Flags were flown at half-mast, and a moment of silence was observed. His name was added to the list of those who had made the ultimate sacrifice. Though he was gone, his courage and dedication were remembered by those who had served with him. The waters where he had trained remained unchanged, but those who swam in them now did so with greater caution and respect. February 14, 2025, was a bright and warm day off the coast of Western Australia near Ningaloo Reef. The ocean stretched endlessly, its surface shimmering under the sun. Aboard a shark-watching tour boat, Derek Carson stood near the railing, filled with excitement. At 36 years old, he had spent much of his life seeking adventure, always looking for new ways to test his limits. From skydiving to deep-sea diving, he had done it all. This tour was supposed to be another thrilling experience, one that brought him face-to-face with one of nature's most feared predators. Derek had always been fascinated by sharks. He had read books, watched documentaries, and even participated in cage diving experiences before. But today, he was determined to get closer than ever. The boat was filled with tourists, all eager to catch a glimpse of the great white sharks that frequented these waters. The crew, experienced and well-trained, carefully lowered a bait cage into the sea. The scent of fish quickly spread, attracting marine life from below. Minutes passed before a massive 17-foot great white shark emerged from the depths. Its powerful body cut through the water as it circled the boat, drawn by the bait. The tourists gasped, some stepping back instinctively while others held up cameras to capture the moment. Derek, however, leaned in. His heart pounded with excitement. He could see the shark's dark eyes, its rough skin, and the way its muscles moved beneath the surface. Ignoring the warnings of the crew, Derek stretched out his arm. The shark swam closer, its snout nearly brushing the boat. At that moment, Derek made a reckless decision. He reached down, attempting to touch the great predator. Without hesitation, the shark lunged. Its massive jaws clamped down on Derek's arm, severing it in an instant. Blood poured into the water as Derek screamed in pain. The force of the attack nearly pulled him overboard, but the crew reacted quickly, grabbing him and hauling him back onto the deck. The boat erupted into chaos. Passengers panicked, some turning away while others shouted in shock. Crew members rushed to help Derek, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. His face was pale, his body shaking from the sudden loss. A distress call was sent out, and the boat immediately turned back toward shore. The minutes felt like hours as Derek lay on the deck, struggling to stay conscious. His mind raced, the reality of what had happened sinking in. The adventure he had longed for had turned into a nightmare. The shark, undisturbed, disappeared beneath the waves, leaving only a red stain behind. When the boat finally reached land, emergency responders were waiting. Derek was rushed to the hospital. He was rushed into emergency surgery as soon as he arrived at the hospital. The doctors worked quickly to clean the wound and stop the bleeding. His body was weak from shock and the pain was unbearable. The medical team kept him under close watch, ensuring he remained stable. The loss of his arm was permanent, but his life had been saved. News of the attack spread fast. Reports of the incident appeared on television, in newspapers, and across social media. People were shocked by what had happened. Many questioned why Derek had taken such a risk. Experts on marine life reminded the public that great white sharks were powerful predators that could not be approached carelessly. The attack became a warning for others who sought close encounters with wild animals. As Derek recovered in the hospital, his life changed in ways he had never imagined. Simple tasks that had once been easy now felt impossible. He struggled to adjust to his new reality. His body was healing, but the emotional impact was just as deep. The memory of the shark's sudden attack haunted him. The moment played in his mind over and over again. Tourism companies operating in the area responded to the incident by tightening safety regulations. Shark-watching tours introduced new rules, ensuring that passengers stayed at a safe distance. Crew members received extra training to handle emergencies. The goal was to prevent another accident like Derek's. The attack also started discussions about responsible wildlife tourism. Experts emphasized that while it was important to appreciate nature, it was equally important to respect it. Derek's family and friends supported him through his recovery. They encouraged him to stay strong, reminding him that his adventurous spirit was still alive. Despite the loss of his arm, he did not want to give up on the things he loved. After months of physical therapy, he learned to adapt. He found new ways to complete everyday tasks, slowly regaining his confidence. The experience gave Derek a new perspective on life. He became an advocate for shark safety and responsible tourism. He shared his story with others, warning them about the risks of reckless behavior around wild animals. Schools and organizations invited him to speak, hoping his experience would prevent similar incidents in the future. The attack remained a powerful reminder of the unpredictable nature of the ocean. While great white sharks were not mindless killers, they were still dangerous predators. Derek had learned this lesson in the most painful way possible. The waters off Ningaloo Reef remained a popular destination, but visitors became more cautious. Tour guides reinforced safety measures, and travelers were reminded to observe wildlife from a respectful distance. Although the scars on Derek's body would never fade, he refused to let the attack define him. He continued to seek new experiences, but with a greater understanding of the risks. His story became a lesson for others, a lesson about respect, caution, and survival in the face of nature's power. On January 22, 2025, 7-year-old Emily Parker was spending a holiday with her grandparents on a quiet beach in the Seychelles. The island nation was famous for its beautiful scenery, clear waters, and warm weather. Emily's grandparents had planned this trip for months, wanting to give her a special vacation filled with fun and adventure. Emily was a cheerful and energetic child. She loved playing in the sand, collecting seashells, and splashing in the shallow water. Her grandparents, Margaret and Thomas Parker, adored her deeply. They had raised her with love and care, always making sure she felt safe and happy. This trip was meant to be a memory she would cherish forever. The beach they visited that morning was peaceful. The golden sand stretched far and the water was calm. The sound of waves mixed with the laughter of children playing nearby. Emily ran toward the shoreline, her feet sinking into the warm sand. Her grandparents watched her closely, smiling as she played. As she waded into the shallow water, the sun reflected off the waves, making the ocean sparkle. The water reached up to her knees as she kicked and splashed. She felt safe, believing nothing could harm her so close to shore. Without warning, the peaceful scene turned into horror. A large shadow moved beneath the water, fast and powerful. Within seconds, a 9-foot bull shark appeared near Emily. No one had seen it approach. The shark had ventured unusually close to shore, drawn by movement in the water. Suddenly, the shark attacked. Its strong jaws clamped onto Emily's small frame, pulling her down with incredible force. She thrashed, trying to free herself, but the predator was too strong. Water splashed wildly as the shark dragged her deeper into the ocean. Her grandparents, standing just a few feet away, screamed in terror. Thomas rushed into the water, desperately reaching for her. Margaret fell to her knees, watching in horror as the powerful animal took their granddaughter away. Other beachgoers turned to see the chaos. Some ran for help while others stood frozen in shock. The water, once so clear and calm, was now disturbed by movement and panic. Emily struggled, but within moments she was pulled too far out. The shark's grip was unbreakable. As it carried her deeper, she could no longer fight. Water filled her lungs and she drowned before anyone could reach her. By the time help arrived, there was nothing anyone could do. The ocean had taken Emily, leaving only silence and heartbreak behind. People gathered in shock. The news of the attack spread quickly across the island. Locals and tourists alike felt shaken by the tragedy. A place once considered safe had now become a scene of devastation. Her grandparents remained on the shore, unable to move. The waves continued to crash softly as if nothing had happened. But for them, their world had changed forever. The beach that had once been filled with laughter and joy was now silent. A sense of grief spread among the people who had witnessed the attack. The clear blue water, which had looked so peaceful in the morning, now held a darkness that no one could ignore. The once beautiful day had turned into a nightmare that no one could have imagined. Emily's grandparents remained frozen in place. Their eyes were fixed on the endless ocean, hoping for a miracle that would never come. The weight of the loss pressed down on them, making it hard to breathe. Other beachgoers stood nearby, some comforting each other, while others could not believe what had happened. Soon, local authorities arrived at the scene. Lifeguards and rescue teams searched the water, but there was little hope. The shark was gone, and there was nothing left to find. Officials spoke to Emily's grandparents, trying to offer words of comfort, but nothing could ease their pain. They had come to this island for happiness, but they were leaving with heartbreak. News of the attack spread quickly. By the end of the day, headlines around the world reported the tragedy. People in the Seychelles were shocked. Shark attacks were rare in the area, and no one had expected such a terrible event to happen so close to shore. Many locals had spent their whole lives swimming in these waters without fear. Now that had changed. Government officials took immediate action. Beach patrols increased, and warning signs were placed along the shores. Experts studied the area, trying to understand why the shark had come so close. Some believed it had been searching for food, while others thought human activity had disturbed its natural behavior. Tourists who had planned to visit the island started to cancel their trips. Families who had enjoyed swimming in the ocean now stayed on the sand, afraid to step into the water. Businesses that relied on tourism faced uncertainty as the fear of another attack spread. Marine biologists spoke out, reminding people that sharks were not monsters but wild animals following their instincts. They explained that such attacks were extremely rare, and that sharks did not hunt humans on purpose. Even so, the fear remained. The ocean, which had always been a place of beauty and wonder, now carried a sense of danger. For Emily's family, life would never be the same. The trip that was meant to create special memories had ended in loss. Her grandparents left the island in silence, carrying only the weight of their sorrow. They had arrived with their beloved granddaughter, but they were returning home alone. Days passed, but the image of the attack stayed fresh in the minds of those who had seen it. The waves continued to move as if nothing had happened, but for the people on the shore, everything had changed. The beach would always hold the memory of the little girl who had been taken by the sea. On September 4th, 2023, the sun shone brightly over the clear waters of Hawaii. The waves moved gently against the shore, making it a perfect day for a snorkeling trip. Lisa Thompson, a 44-year-old tourist from Texas, was eager to explore the underwater beauty of the Pacific Ocean. She had always loved the ocean and had planned this trip for months. The idea of seeing colorful fish and coral reefs up close had filled her with excitement. Lisa had arrived in Hawaii a few days earlier, staying at a beachfront resort. She had spent her time enjoying the sandy beaches, tasting local food, and taking pictures of the breathtaking views. As part of her vacation, she had signed up for a guided snorkeling trip near the coast. The tour promised a safe and unforgettable experience, led by experienced guides who knew the waters well. That morning, Lisa and a group of tourists boarded a boat that took them to a well-known snorkeling spot. The location was famous for its clear water and rich marine life. As the boat anchored, the guide gave instructions on how to snorkel safely. Lisa listened carefully, making sure she understood everything. She adjusted her mask and fins before stepping into the water. As she floated, she marveled at the beauty beneath her. Schools of fish swam around, and the coral reefs stretched out in different shapes and colors. Everything seemed peaceful. The water was warm, and she felt weightless as she moved slowly. She had no idea that danger was near. Without warning, a large shadow appeared from below. A 15-foot great white shark had been drawn to the area, possibly sensing the movements of the swimmers. At first, Lisa did not notice it, but the people on the boat saw the massive creature approaching. A few shouted, trying to warn her, but the sound was muffled by the waves. Lisa finally caught sight of the shark when it was already too close. Fear gripped her as the predator circled her. She tried to stay still, hoping it would swim away. Her heart pounded as she watched the shark's powerful body glide through the water. Then, in a split second, the shark lunged, its massive jaws clamped down on Lisa's leg, dragging her downward. She struggled, trying to break free, but the force of the attack was too strong. Blood filled the water as the shark thrashed, pulling her deeper. The other tourists watched in shock, unable to do anything. The guides acted quickly, jumping into action. They grabbed the equipment and tried to reach Lisa, but the struggle was happening too fast. The boat moved closer, and a crew member threw a life ring, hoping she could grab onto it. But the attack was relentless. The water turned red, and the waves grew rough as the struggle continued. Lisa's fight against the shark became weaker with each passing second. The people on the boat watched in horror, knowing that every moment counted. The peaceful snorkeling trip had turned into a nightmare. Lisa's body became weaker as she struggled against the force pulling her downward. The people on the boat could see the massive shark thrashing in the water. The guides did everything they could, but by the time they reached Lisa, she had already lost too much blood. One of the guides grabbed a long pole and tried to hit the water near the shark to scare it away. Another crew member used the boat's emergency siren to alert nearby vessels. The other tourists stood frozen, their faces filled with horror. Some held onto the railings, unable to look away from the scene. The calm ocean had turned into a place of fear and helplessness. After what felt like forever, the water around the boat became still again. The shark had disappeared into the depths, leaving only red trails in its wake. The tour had begun as an exciting adventure, but it had turned into a tragedy. The boat quickly headed back to shore. The guides radioed for help, informing the Coast Guard about the attack. When they reached land, emergency teams were already waiting. People on the beach gathered, trying to understand what had happened. The news spread quickly, and within hours, authorities arrived to investigate the situation. Lisa's belongings, including her camera and bag, were returned to the hotel. The local officials contacted her family in Texas, delivering the heartbreaking news. Her loved ones could not believe what had happened. The trip she had been so excited about had ended in the worst possible way. The attack shocked the entire community. The area where Lisa had been snorkeling was known for its beauty, but not for shark attacks. Local businesses worried that tourists might now be afraid to enter the water. Beach patrols were increased, and warning signs were placed near the shoreline. Marine experts were called in to study the presence of large sharks in the area. Some people blamed the growing number of shark tours for attracting these predators too close to human activity. Others believed that recent changes in ocean temperatures had affected the sharks' behavior. Scientists pointed out that great white sharks had always lived in these waters, but attacks on humans were extremely rare. In the following days, news stations covered the story, warning swimmers and divers to be extra careful. Lisa's tragic fate became a reminder of the dangers that could exist beneath the ocean's surface. While many still visited the beaches, there was now a deep sense of caution in the air. The once peaceful waters now carried a story that no one would forget. On March 18, 2024, Klaus Becker, a 58-year-old tourist from Germany, arrived at the beautiful coastal town of Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Known for its crystal-clear waters and vibrant coral reefs, the area was a popular destination for snorkeling and diving. Klaus had always loved the ocean and had traveled to many places to explore underwater life. This trip was special to him, as he had been looking forward to experiencing the famous Red Sea reefs. Klaus had spent the morning preparing for his snorkeling adventure. He checked his gear, made sure his mask was secure, and listened to the safety briefing given by the tour guides. He was excited as he stepped into the warm waters, eager to see the colorful fish and corals below. The Red Sea was calm, and the sunlight reflected beautifully off the waves. Everything seemed perfect as he swam further from the shore, taking in the beauty of the underwater world. The reef was full of marine life. Schools of fish swam past him, and small sea creatures hid between the corals. Klaus floated peacefully, enjoying the view. Other tourists were also in the water, exploring the same area. The tour guide watched from a nearby boat, making sure everyone was safe. As Klaus moved further along the reef, he noticed a shadow beneath him. At first, it seemed like another large fish, but within seconds it became clear that it was something else. A large, oceanic white-tip shark had appeared, gliding silently through the water. The shark's sharp fins and powerful body made it look strong and unpredictable. Unlike the smaller fish, it did not move away when Klaus got closer. Instead, it began to circle him. Klaus tried to remain calm, remembering what he had read about shark encounters. He knew sudden movements could attract attention, so he floated still, hoping the shark would lose interest. But the predator had already locked onto him. Its movements became quicker, its body shifting from side to side as it moved closer. Before Klaus could react, the shark attacked. Its powerful jaws clamped down on his arm, sinking sharp teeth into his flesh. The sudden pain was overwhelming, and he struggled to break free, but the shark's grip was too strong. With a violent pull, it dragged him deeper into the water. Other snorkelers nearby saw what was happening and started yelling for help. Some swam toward him while others rushed back to the boat in panic. The tour guide grabbed a long pole and hit the water, hoping to scare the shark away. The ocean, once calm and inviting, had turned into a place of chaos and fear. Klaus tried to resist, but the deepening water made it harder for him to fight back. The shark thrashed, tightening its grip. The surface of the water rippled with red as the struggle continued. The people on the boat shouted instructions, but everything was happening too fast. The shark showed no sign of letting go, and the situation became more desperate by the second. The water around Klaus turned darker as the struggle continued. The shark's movements became more forceful, pulling him further from the surface. His energy was fading, and the pain in his arm was unbearable. His attempts to break free became weaker as his body lost strength. The people on the boat and other swimmers watched in shock, unable to stop what was happening. The tour guide continued hitting the water with a long pole, trying to scare the predator away. Some tourists waved their arms, calling for help from another boat nearby. A few brave swimmers continued to move closer, hoping to pull Klaus away from the shark's grip, but the oceanic white-tip was not letting go. Its powerful jaws remained locked around him, its sharp teeth deep into his flesh. With one final violent pull, the shark dragged Klaus completely under. His body disappeared beneath the waves, and within moments he was gone. The water settled, leaving behind only ripples and a spreading pool of red. The people watching from the boat stood frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. Some gasped in horror, while others turned away, unable to look at the spot where he had vanished. The cries for help faded into silence as the reality of the situation set in. The tour guide quickly radioed for emergency assistance. Other boats in the area were alerted, and within minutes a rescue team arrived. Divers searched the water, hoping to find any trace of Klaus. They scanned the area, moving carefully through the reef, but it was too late. The ocean had already taken him. After several minutes of searching, the team confirmed that there was nothing more they could do. Back on the shore, news of the attack spread quickly. Local authorities arrived to investigate the incident. The beach was closed off, and warning flags were put up along the coast. Tourists who had planned to swim that day were told to stay out of the water. Officials began questioning witnesses, trying to understand exactly what had happened. The attack shocked both locals and visitors. The Red Sea was known for its clear waters and rich marine life, but attacks of this kind were rare. Many people in the area had never seen anything like it before. The incident made headlines, with news reports warning travelers about the dangers of swimming in open waters. Authorities decided to close the snorkeling site temporarily. Experts were called in to study shark behavior in the area and determine if future attacks could be prevented. Some believed that recent changes in fish populations had caused sharks to move closer to shore in search of food. Others thought the presence of tourists had attracted the predator. Klaus's tragic death served as a reminder of the ocean's unpredictable nature. Despite safety measures, the sea remained a place where danger could appear at any moment. The local community mourned his loss, and travelers were left questioning how safe the waters truly were. His story became a cautionary tale, whispered among sailors and beachgoers alike. Some saw it as a cruel twist of fate, while others believed it was a grim testament to nature's supremacy. In the end, the waves carried on, indifferent to the lives they touched, as the world moved forward, leaving only echoes of his memory in the shifting tides.